Welcome to Lead the Way with Anna Gauker. Your guide, Anna Gauker, is on a quest of her own to find effective ways of creating change and inclusion in our communities. You have come to the right place if you believe in truth, justice, and coffee. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Lead the Way, and I'm Anna Gauker. It has been a little while, and I'm so excited to be able to share this episode with you. Since our last episode, I had a conversation with lifelong Madison native Melissa Agard. This newly elected Wisconsin state senator has been in the political game for many years and shared her perspective with us about many topics, including what has changed in the Madison community, how we can improve inclusion, and ways we can all do our part to come together. Listen now to our conversation with Wisconsin State Senator Melissa Agard. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time.
Glad to be invited. It's good to see you and to be able to have a conversation today.
Yeah. Can you start by telling us a bit about your upbringing and what it was like growing up in Madison?
I was born in the late 60s, and they didn't always have a lot, but it was a family that really there was a lot of love. I would say we had a lot of love. When I was um, young, before my school started, my parents did get divorced, and so I grew up from that point on, kind of moving back and forth between my mom's house and my dad's house. Um, and I have a couple siblings that at my dad's house, I had my brothers and sisters, and at my mom's house, I was an only child. Um, and I always felt like Madison had a lot of opportunity and a lot of well meaning people. But even when I was growing up, I saw a lot of how it was that our society was broken. My brother and sister are both Black, and I'm not. And it was really clear that they were treated differently when we would be at the beach taking swimming lessons or riding our bikes, going into local markets, or even walking to school. And it was always very upsetting to me. It was a little bit shocking and upsetting that people would treat us differently, even though we went home to the same place um, at the end of the day, and we were just being kids in the community, that they were treated very differently simply because of the color of their skin. So that made a very big impression on me. Also, I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, so I grew up on free lunch at school, and shopping at stores um, WIC benefits and with food stamps back in the day when they were actually looked like money stapled in a little book. Um, and there was so much stigma, at school. It was, you got a slightly different lunch, and I just felt like people looked and treated us a little bit differently. So it's always been something that's been important to me to be able to tell that story, and to realize that I wouldn't be where I am if it hadn't been for the fact that the government provided services and helped provide a safety net for me and my siblings and my family. And it's not that's not a bad thing. That actually helps make our community be stronger. So I would say that that is a lot of what helped frame me as who I am. I graduated from high school at East High School, and then I went to UW Madison and got my bachelor's degree in psychology from the UW Madison.
What made you decide to stay in the Madison area after college?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. So when I was growing up, I had a handful of dreams, and I think it's really important that our kids all have the ability to dream and to believe that they can achieve their dreams if they work hard. And I think for a lot of kids these days, that's not the case. But for me, when I was growing up, I had a couple of dreams. And one was that I wanted to be a mom. And I know not everyone wants to grow up and be a mom or a dad, but for me, I really wanted to be a mom. I wanted to go to the University of Wisconsin. I wanted to be a Badger. And I also very much wanted to continue to live in Madison because, like I said earlier, I believe that there are a lot of people that want the world to be better that live here, but it is inherently broken. A lot of the things that I experienced as a kid, we're still seeing, we're still experiencing here in our community. And I wanted to make Madison my home because I wanted to help make it be better. And so you learned already that I wanted to be in Madison. It was always my dream. And sure enough, Madison continues to be my home. I did go to the university. It was a lot of work, but college was a lot more affordable for me back in the day. Um, I worked full time in order to put myself through college. And I am a mom. I've got four amazing sons who are 23 down to 11. And they're as different as the 4 points on a compass, but they are amazing. They're amazing boys and men and really provide me with an awful lot of purpose in what it is that I do.
Are there any things that you can think of, for better or for worse, that have changed about the Madison area throughout your life?
Um, well, one of the things that pops into mind right away with that question is when I was little, I learned how to swim in the Madison lakes. You know, in the summer, I could take swimming lessons at BB Clark Beach or Brittingham Beach and spend my summers kind of hanging out in the water and splashing around with my friends and my brother and sister. Now my kids, you know, they don't have swimming lessons in the lakes. And I think that, you know, a lot of what defines the Madison area is our water. And there certainly is a lot of recreation in our water still. But, you know, for a number of reasons, um, our kids aren't out there and enjoying it. They don't have access to it in the same way. So that feels concerning to me. And I think, you know, it's a combination of environmental concerns. You know, oftentimes the beaches aren't safe for us to be in the water at the beaches, as well as um, the need for our local governments to cut spending and not being able to pay to have those lifeguards at the beaches, and you know, to have that kind of be a summer gathering place. Um, it's very upsetting to me that in in Madison and in Dane County, our racial disparities are still as terrible as they are. You know, growing up with a brother and sister who are both Black, um, I saw that. I saw that firsthand, and it's still a problem to this day. And as well-meaning as everyone is, and as smart as we are, and the fact that we have a university here, it feels like we should have been able to solve that problem by now. And it's that to me is super super disturbing. But at the same time, I do feel like there are so many amazing people. We need to figure out how to work with each other in order to lift each other up and make space. And I am seeing more of that space. I'm seeing, um, you know, some diversity at the elected levels within our school boards and local governments and our state government that didn't used to be there. I'm seeing more opportunity for kids to go to school or go onto the technical fields and you know have mentors for them. But at the same point, it you know that type of change is so slow and it's really frustrating.
The big focus of what we talk about in this podcast is learning from people like you, but also figuring out how we in the community fit into solutions, and knowing that you don't need a big platform to make a positive impact. You talked about your kids and how they've really influenced and helped to shape who you are. how do you feel that your experiences in government have shaped who you are as a mother?
Oh, you flipped that one on me, didn't you? Well, frankly, I wouldn't have run for office if it hadn't been for my kids. The very first time I ran for office, I ran as a Dane County Board Supervisor in District 18, which is the north side of Madison. And at that point in time, I didn't really know what a Dane County Board Supervisor did. Um, and I had 3 kids pretty young, and I was pregnant with my fourth. And people were asking me to consider running for office. And I felt busy, right? I was on the PTO and neighborhood associations and helping out within other groups and clubs and organizations that I believed in, and felt like I was doing a lot for my community to try and make it be a better place just within my neighborhood. And Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. So stepping outside of that box of comfort is sometimes very hard for introverts. But a lot of people came, many people came and encouraged me to consider running for office. And I, I was very, very hesitant. And then one day, my 2 sons, the older two, they were in elementary school at that time, came home from school. Their teacher had said, "We want everyone in the school to do some community service. And once we have enough hours of community service, if each of you does 2 hours, if we add that all up, we're going to have all these hours of community service. And when we reach that goal, we're going to have a school celebration. And we're going to have a day at the park, and we're going to bring ice cream sandwiches and popsicles and games, and you can pack your lunches, and it's going to be great fun." And my kids were belly aching because they already did so much community service with me. And I sat them down and I explained to them that sometimes you need to do things not just because your mom is doing it, but because your community is asking you to. And this was at the same time my community was asking me to consider running for the county board, and I was saying no. And it was at that moment in time that I realized that I was acting petulant in the same way that my little boys were acting petulant. And I needed to take a deep breath and realize that my community was seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself. And at that point in time, my kids were my best teacher. They helped me understand that it's okay to become uncomfortable. It's okay to change what it is that you're doing to grow yourself and also benefit a new part of the community. And that's when I decided that I would run for the county board. And they continue to be my very best teachers every single day. Um, they help me have a frame of reference in the work that I do, and see the world through their eyes. And really, they're young and they have dreams and hopes for the future. And I want to make sure that all kids, like I said before, have that ability to have those dreams and hopes and know that what they believe in, what they think is possible. And that's what I bring with me into the Capitol building. Um, and despite the fact that they're not here with me physically, they are with me all of the time, and making sure that I engage with youth voice, and with people from many different communities that maybe I wouldn't think about otherwise, has made me be a better policymaker.
You talked before about your dreams early on in life. Have your dreams for yourself changed over time?
Yes, absolutely. Our life takes us down paths, and there's turns and twists that we can never anticipate. And some of them are painful, um, and some of them are really exciting. And, I never imagined that I would run for office. I know a lot of people probably say that. But, I was just a kid who grew up with hand-me-down clothes and free lunches at school. And the Capitol building to me was kind of a magical make-believe place that I would come on field trips and walk through and dream about what it is that was actually happening here, not really understanding it. Um, I think my dreams now are more about um, having peace and joy in my life and in the lives of the people who I represent, the people of Wisconsin. As a member of the minority party of the legislature, uh, I had to redefine what success looks like in governing. Um, and to me, success as a state representative and a state senator really has revolved around um, providing hope for people and being available to them and letting them know that I'm going to work very hard for them. Um, and at the same time, making sure that I have that balance with myself and have that peace and happiness in my own life. I feel like when I have that balance, I can work harder um, to hopefully provide that to other people in my community.
Can you talk to me a bit about being in a campaign for a new office during a pandemic and what that was like?
It sounds like a really bad book. This last year has been wild, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
seriously. I think that we've all learned a lot about ourselves and about what's possible, but I can't imagine diving into something like that in such a unique time.
Yeah, this last year, I think many of us are probably feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel as more vaccines become available, as the weather is improving in Wisconsin, and we know that we can come outside out of our hibernations a little bit and stretch our arms and put our masks on and see our neighbors, and think about what the world is going to be like when we can again wrap our arms around the people that we love the most that we haven't been able to see. But then you add on to that all the different life experiences and changes that we have all had. And as you pointed out, running for office was a big experience for me. I love knocking on doors. You know this from running for office when you get to meet people who are different than you and come across them and hear their stories firsthand, oftentimes at their threshold in the community. um, those are the most powerful conversations, getting to know the new district, parts of Wisconsin that I haven't represented before and see firsthand what it is, what is that flavor in that community. And because of the pandemic, that was really limited in my ability. So, um, a lot about campaigning during a pandemic was really frustrating. We had to be very creative and kind of find our way. It was like bumping around in a dark room, not knowing where things are. And then once we would find them, kind of feeling it out. Relying on social media, which in many ways can be very damaging and destructive, right? With false information, but knowing that that's the main source of information for so many people in our community. Relying on validators in the community, really the people who I have those personal relationships with that know other people who could tell my story and encourage people to support and to vote for me. Um, it's been quite something, and I am really honored that I was elected to this position, and am looking so forward to being able to be out in the community, knocking on doors as the senator, meeting with people in libraries and parks, in restaurants and taverns, and hearing from them firsthand. Oftentimes you do that during the election cycle, and I'm going to be doing it as an elected official. But I'm not going to give up. I know there's a lot I need to learn from the people I am representing. Um, and frankly, there's probably some things that I did during this campaign that in my next campaign I will use again. But I do look forward to actually being able to um, walk through the neighborhoods and meet the people individually. I think that that's something that is really powerful.
Being a self described introvert, what is it that has motivated you in your roles in government and kind of pushed you to this point? And what would you say are kind of the secrets of overcoming that kind of, I don't know if it's a concern over public speaking or what aspects you would say are obstacles maybe for an introvert?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, for me, the type of introvert that I am, you know, forging authentic relationships with people is always very important to me. Being able to have that interconnection with people, and I think that that is actually something that is becomes a strength as a public servant, because it matters very much to me, who it is that I represent and what it is that will help make their lives be better. What challenges are they experiencing? What is working? And being able to take those stories from those relationships into my work in as a legislator is very very important. Um, I always appreciate being able to have the conversations, you know, during lobby day or in the community where we can have the small roundtable conversations that just feel really authentic. Um, and, you know, being able to build off of those. I do, as an introvert, find that it's important for me to build some time into my schedule so that I can come down and provide that self care. And sometimes that means shutting my door, turning the lights off. I have knitting in my office. Sometimes I use that as a self calming, um, and also realizing that I get a lot of strength from being surrounded by people who love me and I love. So making sure that I have that time with my boys and with my friends is really important. And you know that's something that I really miss because of the pandemic is not having that time with my friends. Um, I think we're all struggling with that. Um, and as you said, you know, public speaking used to be, it's still hard. It's still very hard. I think it's hard for everyone. But standing up in front of a room full of people who you can't necessarily see their eyes and their facial expressions is always very challenging for me. It provides me with a level of anxiety that feels unpalatable. But every time I do it, I show myself I can do this, and I come away a little bit stronger. Um, and you know, I feel like I do better when I can have that positive reinforcement from the people who I'm listening to, right? Like the nodding of the heads and the smile. Um, you know, simple body language always feels really helpful to me. But you know, I think there is a misnomer out there that introverts can't be bold. Um, know an awful lot of introverts that are super bold and super motivated to make change occur. It's just more about where it is that you find your power and your strength and what's the most.
Yeah, that's something that I've felt really strongly about for a long time is sometimes the loudest people in the room have the least uh like what's the word I want to use? Substance maybe to what they're saying and the importance of understanding your own power no matter how quiet you are or you think that people don't notice you, then maybe you're that person that's just full of surprises for everyone else. And that's something really that we all need to make sure that we honor our unique power. What's something that you say to yourself if you come away from a situation and feel like, man, like I could have done better in that moment, or maybe I know I have more in me and it really didn't show right there. How do you handle that?
I remind myself that if I hadn't been in that space, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to actually even try to make my point or to 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 engage, and that there will always be another opportunity. Every day is a new day to learn and to try new things. It's okay to be uncomfortable, and quite frankly, it's okay to make mistakes. But it's how it is that we learn from those mistakes and how it is that we grow from situations like that and move forward that really define who it is that we are. And I have learned that when I do things that make me uncomfortable, when I actually kind of, it's one of the analogies I have is like you're standing on the edge of that diving board and it feels like it's going to be a terrible thing and you just close your eyes and you do it. Um, that the world has provided a softness around me that it's okay. I will land, um, and I will be okay, and I will be stronger for it. And hopefully, I will have made an impression on the world and made the world be a better place because I was brave enough to try something that was hard.
What's something that you've learned about yourself in recent years that you were really surprised about?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, I think that one of the things that I've learned about myself in the recent years that I was surprised about is oftentimes out of hardship actually comes strength. Um, when maybe you feel really sad, at the end of that sadness will be greater joy than what it is that you had before.
Is there something that comes to mind that you really don't like about working in government?
Yes, I do. I think one of the things that is the hardest about working as an elected official is the divisiveness, is the people that just snap um, to a they just snap to a landing. You know, they don't ask questions about why it is that I have made a decision that I have, or why I said something, or why I did something. They just send an email or make a call, or write a letter and are very sharp and negative and oftentimes hurtful with the words that they use. And I think that we all need to do a better job, probably me included, trying to understand different perspectives and viewpoints, as opposed to feeling like we are righteous and where it is that we are.
Is there anything that you would say in particular you're doing to overcome that tendency to kind of, I don't know, feel a distance between you and people who you disagree with?
Absolutely. What I do, and it's certainly a little bit more challenging with COVID, is try to make myself very available to everyone, regardless of whether they agree with me or not, and to earnestly hear what it is that they're saying. And whether that be through listening sessions or taking phone calls, um, Zoom meetings, at this point is, one of the big things that we're doing, but really offering people into my space and being very engaged with them and being open-minded during those conversations is important. But also, I think it's important that we put aside sometimes kind of that hate and the rhetoric that people put out, for example, on social media, where oftentimes there's a sense of an imaginary barrier. It's easier for people to just say things there. Um, I think it's important that we make space for actual individuals and people in the community, um, to be able to have those dialogues and get to know each other. When we can build more trust and we can see each other as humans and find where our similarities are, find where we may have some shared passions, I think that that trust does build and we can actually move things forward more positively.
Yeah, I think that it's something that I think about often, that our politics is such a ugly space, and it seems like it's just becoming increasingly so, and that it's just so unfortunate how personal things have gotten, how we rarely talk about issues in a separate tone than we relate the people to, that we tend to point fingers and bicker more than we want to make progress together. And it's made a really dark time feel a little bit less hopeful. Do you think about that often? And what are some things that give you hope?
I do think about that. Were very eloquent in saying that, and it resonated with me deeply. Um, I do think that what provides me with hope is the fact that there are people that really they really do want to make the world be better, and I think more people are understanding the role that we each individually can play, in the differences that we can as individuals make to improve upon the lives of other people in our communities, as well as on the longevity of the world that this globe, this earth that we live on, and trying to think about the smallest actions, as well as you know, being thoughtful about what it is that we're doing before we do it and how it may be perceived by other people. And oftentimes, as a public official, I do feel like the um, the magnifying glass is more directly over my head than when I was a private citizen. And I think that that is the case. Also, my kids feel that way sometimes. So, giving people some latitude and grace, and um, realizing that it's important that I may not agree with someone, another person all of the time or on the majority of the issues, but really focusing on the fact that it's those issues and it's not that person, that other person is someone who has purpose, who is loved, who loves other people, um, and not having those personal attacks, but more really trying to focus on ideas and thoughts.
Isn't it strange? I mean, I do this too, but that we as humans have this tendency to feel like, even though each of us only has lived one experience, we have a very limited scope of what we've seen as individuals and how we've experienced things and people that we've met. Yet we expect others to see issues in the exact same way that we do. Does that make any sense? Like, I always find that interesting how, we have to all recognize that we can learn from each other and we should not distance ourselves from people that we disagree with because we have so much to gain from learning from them, but that's not always the first instinct. And I don't really understand why that's a tendency, but you and I both majored in psychology, so you would think that we would have some way to figure that out.
I mean, every single one of us has walked a very different path, and there are points in our paths where they intertwine, right? And then
Yeah,
there's points where they deviate from one another. And I think oftentimes people have a hard time seeing how it is that our paths have deviated, and they just think, oh, you have life experience and you're from the same part of the world and are about the same age as me, so you probably see things in a very similar way. But in fact, where our paths have deviated could make us be very different than one another. And when we take the time to actually get to know one another and learn about those differences, we can actually become stronger, right? Like we can make things happen that are more amazing when we take that time, and make that space for each other and learn each other's stories. But we're all in this crazy world that feels like a rat race, where we're working so hard and getting from one point to another point to another point, that right now it feels like it's challenging to take that time to remove those barriers, right? To take those silos down and learn from one another about our differences and understand that we are similar, but we are different. And that actually makes us be even more fabulous when we work together.
can you name a Republican you've met who you admire?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a number of colleagues in the building who I admire who are Republicans. One of them is Senator Joan Baldwin. She used to serve with me in the assembly. and is a freshman with me here in the Senate. And there are many things that we are very different about, but we have an awful lot um, that we share as well. And I admire her and look forward to being able to work with her more. Additionally, I had another colleague um, that I worked with in previous sessions named Jim Ott. He was not reelected, and I adore his replacement, who is a Democratic woman. But he was always someone who would take time to listen um, and find ways that we were able to work with each other. Um, and I think there's another Republican who helped shape me to who I am, who I love dearly, and that was my grandpa. Um, he he was a lifelong Republican, and he's no longer with us. But he wore the Republican Party badge very proudly, and um, I wouldn't be who I am without having had him in my life.
What are you most excited about as a new senator?
I would say getting to know a larger footprint of Wisconsin and falling in love with it. And that's when I first ran for the county board. Um, I knew the north side of Madison because I lived there. But after campaigning and representing the north side for 4 years on the county board, I grew to love really that part of the city of Madison. And then when I ran to represent the 48th Assembly District, which is the north and east sides of Madison, I learned another part of this community that was even bigger and saw a lot of specialness and amazing things that are happening there. And now, as the senator for the 16th Senate District, it's an even bigger footprint, right? Monona and Fitchburg and Cottage Grove and Sunbury and McFarland and Stoughton, Dunn and Dunkirk and Pleasant Springs. There's a lot of this great state of Wisconsin that I have to learn about, and people who I have will have the opportunity to meet, and things I will have the opportunity to see that I wouldn't have if I wasn't elected to be the state senator. And I'm excited about that opportunity, and I'm excited about meeting those people and seeing those things.
Well, Senator Agard, thank you so much for being with us. This has been such a good conversation. That was Wisconsin State Senator Agard. We so appreciate her making the time to share her perspective. As for us, we will be taking a break and coming back with more episodes for you in the fall. We will be sharing updates as we get closer, so be sure to look for that on social media. As always, all episodes of Lead the Way can be found on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and make sure to rate and review when you subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Special thanks to Buzz Kemper for his voiceover artistry in the opening. This episode was brought to you by the time and talent of Tyler Willenbrink, Katie Seamack, and Jeremy Van Mill. I'm Anna Gauker. Until next time.